Hi everybody. I want to share my approach to laying out a ring like this one and creating a ring that's parametric and easy to edit. This is a super straightforward design, except that it has the complexity of having gemstones that are different sizes and different heights and also set differently. And even though that's very straightforward, rings like this can be tricky, especially those where the gemstones don't go all the way around and you want to keep symmetry. Getting a really exact dimension here is probably the trickiest part, and then being able to adjust that if the ring needs to be sized or the stones need to be adjusted in any way can be labor intensive. So I wanted to come up with a way that's fairly simple, and so I'm going to share that here. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this one. All right. Let's start with a ring rail. Mine just defaults to 7, that's fine. And I'm going to add a profile placer. I want a square-ish one because of the flush set stones. So I'm going to just do 2 by 2, and then I'm going to use auto sweep. And I am going to be extracting some ISO curves along the way that are part of my dynamic or my parametric layout, but it's not totally obvious at this point. But since we're here, I'm just going to grab this one, and then because I'm creating a few, and just for good measure, I always like to name my the commands in my dynamic command workflow over here. Okay, so next I want to flow some gems, and for various reasons I am wanting to constrain that just to this quarter, and so I'm going to work on just this side, and then I'm going to mirror them over, but I am going to work off a trimmed ring rail curve. It will become maybe more obvious why I'm doing that in a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim this ring rail. I want this right in the center, and then this is less exact, more arbitrary, just somewhere right around where the stones will likely end. Okay, and then I'm going to use just this little curve here to array some gems. I'm going to make these princess cut, and I'm just going to roll them to make it more fun. I'll make them bigger, and then I know that I want the table to be 3 millimeters from the ring rail, so I'm going to just use table, and then this slider maxes out at 2, so if you want anything beyond 2 you just have to type it, and then any changes that you want to make, if they're still more than 2 you just have to type them in, otherwise if you use the handle it will snap back to 2. Okay, and then I'm going to use, now I could, to constrain the number of gems, I could use count toggle, but as you can see, or maybe not, when you use count toggle you don't really have control over the end point, and I want that control. So I'm going to drag this roughly where I think the stones should end, and then I'm going to use my spacing handle until I have just 3 stones. All right. And I'm going to call this large. I don't like to erase what's already there because then your commands end up like alphabetically where you anticipate them. And sometimes whatever I name things like makes no sense later, and then I have to spend all this time looking for what it is. So I recommend just adding on instead of erasing what's there. Okay, so I'm going to run that command again. Select this curve this time. I think I want these to be 1.2, and I know that I want them to start somewhere between these two, and I want them to be, I want the table to be just right in line with the top surface here of the band, which I know is 2. So I'll just type that. And then I want the end to be somewhere between these two, and I only want 2 stones, so I'm going to just slide this spacing handle till I have only 2. Okay, and then let me just rename this small. Okay. So now what I really want to know, and the big mystery, is once I have a bezel, what is the distance going to be? I have in my mind that I want the distance between the bezel wall and the girdle of this stone to be about 0.7. And it's, you know, you can edit these stones and their start position and their end position, but you can't snap to any point beyond just a few points along this line that are not exactly arbitrary, but they may not be where you want. And then, you know, how do you line that up with these? I think that's the major problem that I have. So I'm going to start by first just making a bezel for these. So at least we have that dimension. So I'm going to make this actually 0.5, and I'm going to get rid of this dome. I'm going to pull this down. I will maybe like prepare this for someone to review, so I might just try and make it look marginally like it's set. I'll make this 0.2. And I like to do that because I like to just kind of fillet this, so I want some room there at the end. Okay, and then I'll just bring this up a little bit. All right. Okay, so now I can see here that the bezel intersects here, and here's the girdle, but I still don't have a good way of measuring that. So I'm going to create another isocurve. I'm going to use the bezel this time, and I want this isocurve to intersect with this isocurve so that I can snap to that point. So I'm going to try and get it like right in the middle here. But it seems like it doesn't really want to snap to that. Okay, so it's between 0.13 and 0.12. I'm just going to try typing 0.125, and that looks like it's going to intersect. Okay, so even though it doesn't say 0.125, with adding just another decimal place, you can sometimes get a little bit more of an exact location. Okay, and then I'll rename this one just bezel. Press enter. Okay, and then I'm going to create some cutters for these little guys. So I have another point of data. Doesn't really matter what these look like right at the moment, so that looks fine. And then I'm going to grab another isocurve from this one. Oops. sorry, I have to press Control Shift to sub-select since those cutters were created in a group. And I'm just going to hold Shift and hopefully it will snap to this point. I want it, again, to intersect with the ISO curve that I already have here, this one. So that looks good. All right, oops. And then I'll just rename that cutter. Okay, so now let's look from the front. We can hide this and this and even this. And now we have a good set of data points here. We know that this is the outside bezel wall and this is the girdle, and we can measure this, but I want to add a Rhino command now with history that will record that and then update when these dynamic commands update. So I'm going to use intersect. And I'm going to select this and this and this. Okay, and so you can see all these lines intersect, and now you have these 2 points which will update if you make any changes to in your dynamic commands. Okay, so the only caveat with using Rhino history enabled commands is that if you use them in collaboration with any dynamic commands that get hidden either by auto hide, like if you do a Boolean and one element disappears in your dynamic flow, or like here in the ring rail, for example, this is dynamically hidden, or if you actually just use the hide here in the dropdown, then it will break the history enabled command history. So if you, so what I do is, let me just grab these points. I put anything that falls into that category of a Rhino command, but something that I'm using in conjunction with dynamic commands into one layer. I picked light green because that's where I always put them, and it's very easily accessible. It's right here. And then you can just do a regular hide, and that will have no effect on the history. Or you can type hide, or you can use this eyeball right here. So as long as you don't dynamically hide anything, then you should be good. Okay, so another history enable command I'm going to use is dimension aligned, and I'm just going to snap to these points. Okay, and actually I'll put this on light green. Okay, so now this tells us on screen, right in big numbers, what this relationship is. So I don't remember, if you recall, I said I was wanting this girdle of this stone, the distance here to be 0.7. So I will simply just eyeball this and make a few adjustments and see how close I get. And since I tied this dimension to my intersect points, it's going to update as I go right here on screen, which is so easy. All right, and closer. Let's just try one more little nudge. Ah, too far. Okay, this must be really annoying to watch, because who cares, right? Okay, 6.67 is fine. Okay, so now I know that this relationship is one that I like. So the next thing I need to do is figure out how to align these stones not only so that they are symmetrical, but so that they maintain this 0.67 relationship from this side as well. So to do that, I am going to use another dynamic command, gem guides, and I'm just going to hold Control Shift to subselect just these two. And I don't need vertical guides or horizontal guides, but I do need center point. And before I go, I'm just going to put the center point placement up here above the table of the higher stone. Okay, and then these gem guides don't automatically group, so I'm just gonna type cell last, which will just select all the pieces from the last command, and I'm gonna put them in this light green. I think they default usually to this yellow layer, so I just want to make sure they're in light green. Okay, and then I'm going to add a point in the center. So I'm just going to type PT, and then location of point is 0. Okay, so now I can use another Rhino command that I love. It's very useful in a lot of different ways, but it's just curve through point. And this is somewhere in the curve menu. I just don't remember exactly where it is, but you can explore that on your own if you want. I'm going to select this point and this point, and then press enter. And I'm going to do that again here, from here to here. Okay, and now because this is a history enable command, and because gem guides is parametric, if I slide this gem up and down this curve, it will take this one right along. So just to make my point here. So that's great. And that is part of how I'll create my layout. So I'm just going to undo that. I want to use intersect one more time. And I'm going to intersect these 3. Okay, and so now I have these 2 points, which is the final bit of information I need. So I'm going to use dimension again, and I'm going to just grab this point and this point and this point, and I'm going to drag it up here. Okay. Okay, so now this number can tell me how I can array more of these curves so that I can use them as a backdrop for aligning my gemstones, which I'll show you right now. So I will use array curve. Just notice if you type array, there are like a million array commands, and there's some dynamic array. I know there's polar, but we're just using array curve. So I'm going to select this object, and then this path, and this is part of the reason I trimmed this to begin with. If I use the ring rail, it would create quite a lot of visual chaos for me. I don't need these to array all the way around. I just want them in this quadrant. So there you go. And now you can see I have a few extra ones that I don't really need. I only need 5, but it doesn't matter. And then I want the distance to match this distance here. So I'm going to type, oops, 3.12. Okay, and then just right click. Okay, so now we have a nice backdrop that will show us exactly where our culettes need to line up to make these distances consistent. So I'm going to do the small one first. And this is why I wanted endpoint control here. So I'm going to just slide this so the culet is right over this line. Okay. And then I'll do the large ones. Same here. You can zoom in. And let's see, it should work for this one as well, just automatically. Okay, right click. Okay, so, and now just as to show you, if you get to this point in a layout, which I inevitably do, and I realize I read the size wrong, or I didn't think about the fact that we have to cast it, and blah, 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 it's very easy to change. So let's just say I wanted to make this a 7.5 instead. So just take note of everything here, the numbers, all the light green, and then press enter. Okay, so now, obviously because the circumference is bigger with a larger size, you the relationship between these stones will change. But you have proof here how much they changed, and you know how to get them back where you want them to be. So if you want it to be, well, let's just do something more extreme here. Let's make it an 8. Okay, so if you want to get these stones back to having that 0.7 distance between girdle and bezel, you can just slide this over. Oh, way too far. Okay, there, perfect. And now the new distance here is 3.17. Now, even though array is history enabled and these do change orientation, they only change their orientation in terms of, you know, they come right along with this curve. They don't, the spacing doesn't change. So, for example, if you were gonna just, you can see that this is the old spacing we used, or close to it. So you do have to just delete these and then do your array once again. And anytime you make a change, you'd have to re-array this, these lines. I have thought a lot about this, and I can't figure out a way to make it happen automatically without really so overcomplicating things that it's not worth doing it this way. So then you just, all you have to do is simply slide your stones back into the right position. And there you go. Even though you just made this huge change, changing size, you can still get back to that alignment really easily. Okay, so now you can just proceed with the rest of this ring, really. You can, let's see, I'm gonna hide these yellow lines, and then I'll just grab these, but not, I'm gonna select this, and then I'm gonna do a mirror. Well, I'll do it this way. Here we go. All right, that looks good. I don't know if other people are experiencing this green phenomenon, but it's since the last update, just randomly things will be on this weird green layer that actually is not correlated with anything, and it's super annoying because it's actually here just in the layers menu. It's like this parent layer. It's really annoying. Anyway, I'm sure that'll get resolved at some point. Okay, but and let's just get rid of that annoying green. I'm gonna bring my ring rail back, and I'm just going to cut these bezels. Whoops. Let's do that again. I'm gonna just hold Control Shift and select all of these. All right. There's some weird stuff going on there. What is that? I'm just gonna hide these for a sec. Nope. Okay. Alright, and then actually I'm gonna make some little pipes to give these flesh set stones like a burnished look. So I'm gonna use the gem offset curve, and I'm just gonna hold Control Shift and select these, and then press enter. And I want this just to be more close to the surface. And then I'll right click. And gem offset curves, even though if you create them in a group, they don't group automatically. They're kind of like gem guides. So I'm just going to do cell last again. Nope, that didn't work. Where are they now? It's so annoying. Maybe I didn't create them after all. I didn't. Look at that. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to select these. Oh no, there they are. Why aren't they showing? Show yourselves. Hide. Now let's try that again. Show. Oh no, they're right here. I see them. I'm being a total dum-dum. Okay, let's just hide these, and then, okay. Let's do this. This one, and this one, and this, and this. Okay. I'm going to group these just to avoid any of this ridiculous behavior. Okay, and then I'm going to select them and pipe. I'm going to make this, that looks pretty good. Maybe smaller. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to create my finished product. I'm gonna use Boolean difference. I'm gonna select my shank, and then these, and these. Oops, and these. Oh, I see. Okay, and right click. Okay, so now we have these weird chunks. It's fine. What I would normally do is when I'm finished or when I'm creating a rendering, you can just hold Shift and Control and window select these, and then type the command GV hide, and that will get rid of those just for rendering or during the final steps. But I'm going to do a little bit of editing here, and I want this to change easily, so I'm just going to leave those where they are, but I am going to bring back these guys. Let's turn these off. Okay, so here you have your finished-ish design. You know, and you may decide this was a mistake, these are too big, I want them to be round, it should be a size 7. So let's just make some of those changes just for fun. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to turn my gauge back on here. It's essentially what we created, and let's make these round. Or I wonder what would happen if we made them cushion cut, where that ISO curve would end up. Let's see how much I can mess with this. All right. Okay. Interesting. All right, so I think it would be necessary probably to change some of these things. Let's see if I can get this right there. Okay. So yeah, you can see that the let's do that again. So this dimension was linked to the somehow whatever this is intersecting with. I don't really even know. But when you change the ISO curve like I just did, it will snap back to showing you the dimension between the bezel wall here, and so that's cool. And let's just say I want one less, so I'm going to do this. And I want this relationship to be different. I want that to be closer like it was before, so I'll edit this, just slide this toward the bezel. Okay. Alright, so now it's 1 millimeter. So now I want the rest to reflect that, and I know that, oops, the new relationship or the new array distance is 2.87, so I'll just go ahead and erase these, and I'll do array curve. I'm going to select this and this. Make sure you're grabbing that snipped one. Oops, wait a minute, I'll try that again. And this one. And I want my new number to be 2.87. And now I'm going to line these up. So I'll slide this one first to here. Okay. And this one, I'm going to slide this one up the shank like this. Here we go. All right. So yeah, even with making pretty big changes, changing the orientation, changing the size, the height, how the stone is rotated, you can still maintain history, and that makes creating this layout much faster and easier. And that's all I had to say about that. So I hope this is helpful,